or whatever it takes, by any means necessary. Failure is not an option, kind of grind.
Look at the way you see me coming, I'll knock you down and it won't be funny. Look at the way you see me coming, I'll knock you down and it won't be funny.
No matter what, I always have to think strategically.
So I wanted to say, first of all, welcome. I'm Megan Weaver, and we actually met in DC. Sherelle told me that you were doing a book signing, and it was in Georgetown, and she said, "Oh my gosh, this is perfect. Are you in DC?" Because I travel a lot. And I said, "Yes, I'm in DC."
Right.
She said, "Jayne's in DC in Georgetown." She told me the days. She said, "Maybe we can try to have this interview in person. Maybe we can make some things work." I said, "Okay, I will rally it up together. I have my microphones, camera. If she's able to do it, I'm ready." But I know at
Okay.
that time it was a last minute thing. It was something that we weren't able to coordinate, but at
Right.
least I was there to meet you. And I remember telling you, I don't know if you remember, but I said, "I'm interviewing you soon."
Yes, yes, you did. I remember that. Yeah. That was
And
that really nice hotel.
yeah,
And there were two events actually. The
yep.
first day was the tribute to Lamont McLemore and his
Hmm.
book, what's the name of it? Oh my gosh. Black is Beautiful, right?
I think so.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, yes, yes,
Uh-huh.
yes. And then my book was premiered the next night. So
Yep.
yeah, and I was there to represent Lamont. He had been very sick, and he passed away recently. So I'm just really happy that I had a chance to do that for him.
Yeah, that was beautiful. Yeah, I love that. And I I told my editor, who's also a friend of mine, I told her what's happening and I said, "Just come." And
Yes.
she said, "I'm on my way." And I love that I have someone that's able to do that. I just tell her the day of and she's able to show up. She's like, "I'm getting the book. I'm sitting there. She's like, she took so many jewels and nuggets like I did from that session.
Well, thank
And it's an emotional experience. I know you've talked about it before about just the effect that you have on us, on the next generation, and then the ones after us. And I'm like, why am I crying right now? So thank you. Thank you for letting me cry and letting me
You're
be
more
me
than
in that
welcome. You're more than welcome. It's
Yeah.
yeah, it's it touches me the same way, because some of the things when I think back and I'm going, oh my God, it just doesn't seem like it actually happened. There's so many wonderful experiences that I've had. And, I was just a small town girl from Wickliffe, Ohio.
Yep.
And, then all of these worlds just opened up and they happened so quickly. I don't know why God had that in plan for me. Um,
Mm,
and I'm still looking, I'm still
yeah,
looking to find that.
I love that. So let's go back. Let's just go into it. Let's talk about
Okay.
your
All right.
childhood and your experiences that you had as a young girl, your goals and dreams. What was it like for you as a young girl growing up, as Jayne? What was that like?
Um, well, it was Jane at that time.
Yeah.
And I had five sisters and one brother. My brother was the youngest, so no, and I'm the second oldest. So I got the chance to be the boss a little sometimes, but my older sister took over most of the time. But we were a very close family. I know I've said this before that a lot of people they write books and they talk about the things that they survived. The agony, the grief, the horror, the all of the things that have damaged them as a young person and how did they come out of that. And I admire that, but I couldn't write that book because my experience was totally different. My
Mhm.
experience was, we didn't have a lot of money, but we didn't know it. As kids, we didn't know it. We were wonderful. We had opportunities to go places that I dreamed of. We had opportunities to have a wonderful school system where I met great friends. We had lots of family in the Cleveland area. So, like our house was the big house with the backyard and everything. So everybody would come to our house for holidays. And I just had an incredible childhood.
Oh,
So, and in doing so, there were moments where opportunities came up, and I just said, I can do that because
Mm,
my parents raised us to think that we can do anything if we put our mind to it. My dad, well, I could go on and on about that, but you don't want to do that. But my dad was one of those hands-on men. He could do anything. And I think I got that from him. So I just wanted to find out what life was about. And I had so many paths open to me as a teenager. And one day I'd say, this is what I'm going to do. And I'd set my mind on to the next year, something else would come along. Well, maybe I'm going to do this. Well, maybe I'm going to do this. But
yeah.
when the opportunity to go to Los Angeles came up, it was a no-brainer.
I love that. So I love that because I read your book and it was so many things in there that helped me and reminded myself of like, oh my gosh, this is things that I'm doing or passionate about and interested in. And the fact that you were said to your, like just now, I can do this, I can do that, I can do this too. So I think that there are others that are like us that find that we can do all these things or have desires to do that. So where did you get that from? To have the confidence to say, you can do that. Because some people may think, are you sure? But you're like, yes, I can do that. Where did that come
I,
from?
I never doubted myself in any endeavor that I've ever been in. Um, it's been more like, that's going to be hard to do. How do I fix it? It was never like, oh gosh, that's too hard. I'm not going to do it. So I was always the girl that, I jump in the middle of a fight. I would jump in the middle of a basketball game, but we didn't, this was before Title IX. So everything was, just within your school system. And we didn't have the opportunity to compete statewide or even on a national level. But we did have backyards, and our backyard was full of stuff to play with. My
Mm,
dad built a very large swing set, and it had on it what I call a trapeze because it was so high up. You'd have to jump up to get it, and then you'd swing and you do these performances on the trapeze. Or we would ride down the street on my bike. It had a very slant, and it was a dead end street. You start at the top, and as you go down, I would mount on the back of the bike and put my head down on the seat and put one foot up in the air with one hand up and flying down the street, and we would charge the neighbors a nickel to come and see our show.
wow.
So, each year you had to do something different. My uncle had a bike. He was a tail gunner in World War II, and
Mm,
he was burned completely when it got shot down. And
mm.
so he'd been patched all over his body. And so he started doing stunt riding. Just, hey, I can do this, why not? I fell out of the air. I can do this. And
I
I
can do
think,
anything.
yeah, so I think I got some of it from him too, because he would ask me, he said, I'm going to a race this weekend. You're going to be my second. And I would hold him, sit on the back of the bike backwards with my hands around his waist, and he's going forwards in the other direction. And I had a spoon in my mouth with a raw egg in the spoon. And he would have to curve the bike as low as he could to the ground, in and out of cones, in and out of cones. And my job was to make sure the egg never fell. And we always won.
We always won. That means you had impeccable balance and coordination to do that. That's
Yeah,
another
yeah, yeah.
skill. I didn't know you could do that.
But my grandmother used to say to everybody, whenever I said I'm going to Hollywood, and at 4 years old, I said I'm going to Hollywood. And everybody says, "Shut up, Jayne." And Grandma would say, "You let Fancy Prancy alone. She can go to Hollywood and be a movie star if she wants to." And I'm going, Francie Prancy. Yeah, that's what
Francie,
Grandma called.
Francie.
Yeah.
I love that. So she was your cheerleader, along with other family members as well. No one
Yes.
was saying, bashing and saying, oh my gosh, that's crazy, that's lofty, give it up. Because that
Right.
can be triggering as well, especially for young girls, for anybody, for any child we're sharing this with parents as well. So we want this to be a tool for them.
Mhm.
So in that situation, what's maybe a message that you would tell parents when they have a child like yourself that says, I want to go to Hollywood, I want to do this, what would be an advice? Because, we want to send a message to our parents as well.
I think I would be like my grandma, fancy prancing could do whatever she wants to do. You have to dream. I would have these dreams of white-winged horse that would come to my room, my bedroom, and I would ride them and just see, go all over. I thought the world was very small at that point, but that dream has never gone away from me. And it told me to reach for the heavens. Because this white winged horse would take me and I'd be on his back flying everywhere and seeing the world as I imagined it. And then to me to actually get to a point where I could travel the world, I always
Mm.
remembered that white winged horse. And so those are things, there's some things that have happened in my life that have carried me forward that I didn't understand where they came from. But there was a power that was built. And what I would tell parents is to always give those children to find their power, to find their ability to be able to dream and think, well, yeah, I can do that, instead of that's too hard, or, no, the girl over there, she always does that. I can't compete with her. I never believed that. Um, there's so many things I could say. I mean, even in competitive sports, and so thankful that I had the opportunity to coach and to manage a girls soccer team. I coached them starting ages 8 to 12, and then I took them to um, a club team, and I think that was until they were 18 or 19. And
Wow.
many of them, they wanted to play soccer. They were playing in AYSO. And I said, look, you girls are too good. And I went and cherry picked from each of the teams. And I got 10 girls together, put them into a club soccer league. And they ended up winning the national championship. And then they ended up winning the scholarships. I think 6 of them ended up getting soccer scholarships to Brown, to NYU basketball. So,
Mm.
I think my idea of telling people you can do whatever you want to, I make sure that other people have that opportunity. And if I can help to make that possible for them, then that's what I do as well.
I love that. Yeah, I love that message to keep encouraging to dream big in a sense.
Dream big always. Oh,
Always. Yes, I love that for any age, for
yes,
myself, for other young girls. And I know we talked about your family and the upbringing and how they were supportive, but then there's also getting out into the real world, right? We still
yes.
have bullies. We still have the real peer pressure, discrimination, and for you, the pageant, right? So in those things, it's like a wake-up call where certain things after you won, certain things didn't happen the way they did in the past. And even with the questionings, and now your answers are cut a little short. And wait, I don't understand what's happening here. I'm thinking, I'm putting younger Jane's brain on right now, wondering, wait, these
Right.
things are supposed to happen in the pageant. How come these things aren't happening for me? So, how did you deal with the bullying or discrimination at a young age? How did you manage that?
I never really had bullying, except for in primary school when
Mhm.
the Fun with Dick and Jane readers.
Mhm.
Oh, I'm surprised you know.
Yeah, I've heard it.
Yeah, so everybody would tease me, you're Jane, where's Dick, or
Yeah.
oh my God, the worst was, you're Jane, where's Tarzan,
Uh-huh.
where's Cheetah, where's Boy, and I was so sick of all of that teasing, and that I have to say was the worst part for me, because that was like years of that teasing, and then I I got to, I think it was seventh or eighth grade. And I had heard that Marilyn Monroe had passed. No, no, no. Jane Mansfield. Okay.
Oh,
And when she passed away, I looked at that name on the paper and I said, I'm going to spell my name that way. She spelled it Jayne. And
mm,
I took that name and nobody teased me anymore.
wow. And that's just the simple fact of changing the way that you spell your name.
It worked for me.
Wow. Sometimes
But
it's the little things that we don't even think, can
yeah,
make that difference.
yeah,
And it does.
yeah, yeah, it does.
That's
It does.
interesting. And you're like, and after that moment, it was done. That's interesting.
But
Okay.
instead of the bullying, there was always instead of the bullying, there was always the racism. So, we faced that because, I was a child of the 60s. So you
Mhm.
had issues with race everywhere. There were freedoms that were being found that had never been before in existence for our young people in this country at that time. There were assassinations of a president, assassination of Dr. King, of Bobby Kennedy, um, the Black Power movement, everything, burn your draft card, burn your bra, all of those things that were of the 60s. And that was my era. So, yes, you would think that you could do something because these people, you'd see it on TV. You'd see against many, many odds because of all the riots that were happening. You'd still see Black people succeeding. And to me, that meant a lot. Yes, I was educated in a school that did not have very much Black history in it. But I had my families. So, we would travel up and down the East Coast visiting family, and we knew a lot of the history of our family. I can go back in my family tree to my great great grandfather and my great great grandmother, who were slaves sold on January 1, just after Lincoln declared the slaves free.
Wow. That's
And
amazing.
so to be able to have that legacy on my shoulders or on my back, whichever way I have to struggle, I want to keep it real for them. I want to be able to make sure that my children know about them. I want to
Mm.
be able to make sure that other children know about the history of African Americans in this country.
That is so important. And for to know that because a lot of people don't. Some people can't trace,
Yeah.
their lineage back but so far to figure out exactly where they came from, what their
Yes,
legacy.
and it's not their fault. It's just that it's not there. But we have a family reunion that we do starting in 1977. And we do it every other year in South Carolina. This is the Harrison Family Reunion. And we had it in Washington, D.C. Jet Magazine and Ebony Magazine proclaimed us the largest Black family reunion in
Yeah.
America.
Yeah. I remember you
We had
saying.
we had so many people there. And then the next year, I mean, not the next event, which was 2 years later, we decided that we were going to create a scholarship fund. And so all the sales of T-shirts, mugs, whatever that was sold at the event, we would turn that money into scholarships. And every other year, we would present the opportunity for a college-bound student to win money to help them on the way. And that was in the Harrison Family Reunion. I also did the Lou Rawls Telethon, raising money for scholarship fund. I also worked Children's Miracle Network Telethon, where we've raised over the years over 9 billion in money to be funded to children's hospitals throughout North America. So, it's not all about, you don't live your life just in the in the limelight. You have a private life that you have to be committed to as well. Because if you don't have a balance between those, you get lost.
That is so true. And I remember you saying that when we spoke or when you were during the book signing. And I remember you saying the balance, right? And that is
Yes,
important. I think a lot of times people juggle with that. I think we all do in different ways, trying to find, that time to put the focus on here. And I know you've mentioned that as well with your daughters. Okay, now is the time I have to be a mom. I have to
yes,
slow down and spend this time because you won't be able to get that back as they're growing up. You can miss certain things. And
yes.
with young girls now and even women, we face these stereotypes, right?
Mhm.
Just something that we face every day. There's beauty, and no brains, right? Low income, therefore they're invisible. A certain skin complexion, therefore inferior, so on and so on. These stereotypes normalize abuse towards a person in ways to humiliate them, minimize, or discredit, etc. So, what advice would you give our community to help them overcome these stereotypes and combat that and make sure that they're protected for themselves?
Well, you said that some of the people are doing this to and able to minimize other people.
Mhm.
Um, but you have to understand that they also do it because it tells them that I'm better. And they're maybe not looking as much to minimize you as much as the more they minimize you, they can validate themselves. So,
Mm,
because I think that people are more about themselves than thinking about other people, especially when you find it where there's an element of hatred, an element of resentment. And I think that in our country, we have a lot of that. And I actually didn't realize how much we did have it until the man in the White House that we have now. Um, I thought we were doing really good, and I thought my girls were advancing. I was proud of all the achievements that they had had. By the time they graduated in college, the 2020 was over, and I thought we were going to be doing really well. And it's just like we're going backwards. And I
yeah.
know that a lot of people say that, but it just hurts my soul to know that my daughters don't have agency over their body like I did when we fought for that in 1920. I mean, sorry, 1960s and 70s. So, I think that we have the power to create so many things. I was going to name one, but it was so many things. We have
Yeah.
the power to create, and people are afraid of that. Um,
Mhm.
and sometimes it's our own selves that are afraid of that. So I'm just I don't see how we get out of this right now. Um, and I don't mean to be political about it,
No,
but it helps. This has been something that has touched all of our families.
mhm.
It's not really politics at this point. It's, well, how are my children going to survive? How are my children going to find the dreams that they want? I was able to find my dreams. I
Mhm.
wanted my children to be able to find their dreams
Mhm.
and then their children to find their dreams. I have the bill of sale from my great great grandmother when she was sold as a slave. And you
Mm.
look on there and you see her with the names of all the other people that were sold at that auction. And then they're listed with the pigs and the cows and the corn and the sacks and all of it. And they're just property. And they fought and they maintained and they lived through it. And our family tree is way more than 10,000 people right now from those first two people that met on the Harrison plantation.
Man.
I don't know if I answered your question.
No, you're absolutely, I'm so, and the thing is, even if it goes political, ultimately, that is the climate that we're in, and it's affecting women. It's affecting our bodies. The choices that are given to us are not given to us, and how we're viewed, how we're protected, how we
Yeah.
feel safe or unsafe in various situations, how we're handled and cared for once we leave that safety net of our house, of our
Mhm.
home. And now
Mhm.
we're interacting with people with different backgrounds, how they feel and how they feel like they can talk to us and treat us.
Yeah, and
And
it's so hard to talk to your children these days too.
you
You
said
know,
what?
it's so hard to talk to your children now because they're being educated in a world where tech has taken over. And it's really hard for a parent to combat that. Um,
Yes.
and I'm so happy that my kids were grown when that era came in because I wouldn't know how to navigate that. I would try my best, but that's hard, when you're fighting against technology. and
Yes.
everybody wants to use it. And then,
Mm.
like you wake up one morning and your whole phone has changed. And you're going, and I'm 74 and I'm going, I have no idea what happened.
Yes.
And I got to call my daughter.
Yes. You're like, okay, what's happening here?
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
the thing what you mentioned about tech and social media, because in social media nowadays, there's filters for everything. It alters, it changes your face. And even with certain apps, you can alter your body. And,
Mhm.
it's not what it really is in real life. So these young girls are seeing these images or able to change how they look. So that
And
also
boys,
affects their, and
and
more.
boys, and
Yeah.
boys.
And
Oh,
boys, yes. And it's changing their thought perception about themselves. So now they're seeing all these things like maybe I need to look like this, maybe I need to do this. And there was actually a young lady named Jada West who was bullied and she was hospitalized and she ended up passing away, unfortunately. And she's not the only one. There are many girls that we don't hear about that don't make the news, headline news, local news. And it's unfortunate, and there are even young girls that are committing suicide because of how they feel about themselves. And it's an internal struggle that they're facing.
it
And
is.
there's got to be what we're trying to do now is to motivate, to uplift and encourage and to steer them away from that. So if this was your daughter, because we're going to imagine all these girls that are seeing this for the first time, that they're your little daughters, my little daughters, all of our little daughters, what would you say to them now that they're in this different era of social media and the influences that they're seeing?
Well, the thing is, you have so much information available to you now. Um,
Mm,
and sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. So I remember, I'll get back to your question too. What do we need? How can we fix that with our young children today? But to start off, I would like to start with um, when I was in eighth grade, and there are probably a lot of young women out there that might be able to relate to me. Um, we didn't really have like sex education. I
mm,
didn't really know much about it at all. My mom, when I was finally in high school, had no idea how to tell me. But when I was in eighth grade, I had gone to a party with my sister, my older sister. My mom wouldn't let her go unless her younger sister tagged along. But there were the people there that were older than me, and I'm sitting in the corner just watching and having a great time. And I'm listening to, the great music of the day under the boardwalk, and sitting on the dock of the bay and
yeah.
Smokey Robinson and the Miracles. And I'm sitting there having a great time. And this gorgeous boy, older than me, comes over and he said, "Do you want to dance?" And I'm looking around. Yeah. So we're dancing, and then he leaned in and he French kissed me. Oh my God. And it was one of those blue light parties. So I don't know if you know what a blue light party is, but
No, but I've heard red light. I don't know the blue light.
oh, okay. So back in the day, back east where people had basements, you would have a basement party and all the lights were blue. So it was just a thing. It's a blue
Okay.
light party at your house. That's all it is.
Yeah, okay.
But here I am, and I'm dancing with this guy and I'm in heaven. So the rest of the night is just a dream. Um, and so several weeks later, I heard some of the girls at school talking about one of the ninth graders was pregnant.
Mm,
And they said that she got pregnant by French kissing.
yeah.
Oh my God. I froze. All my life just flashed before me. And I said, I'm pregnant. And and I was like a straight A student. I was doing everything great. My I had a great family at home. My mom and dad loved me. I loved them, loved my sisters and brothers. And now I'm thinking about running away because I didn't know what to do and I didn't know who to ask. So then I ended up thinking about suicide.
Mm,
And that's the reason that I brought this whole thing up.
mm,
Sometimes you feel like you don't have anywhere to turn.
yeah.
I'm thinking about running away, but I didn't have any money. I didn't even know where to go. I didn't even know how to do that. And the only thing that seemed right to me was suicide.
Mm.
And it was so hard for me to think of how to do it. But when weeks went by, and then, I didn't show. And I'm thinking my grades went down to a C in my math class. And that just tore me apart. And I had nobody to talk to. So I ended up saying, I'm going to go to the library and see what I can find out. And I've got this book, started reading it. And I said, oh, wait a minute. No, 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 no. No, I didn't do none of that.
Wait a minute.
None of that. No, no, no. I'm not pregnant. I'm not pregnant. And the thing is that I wanted to tell it is that our children have to be educated properly. They have to know where the pitfalls are in life so that they can learn how to steer around them. We have to be able to not only honor our children, but to uplift them in a way that they can function on their own if they were without us. It would be an easy reality these days. So, we have to be able to give them everything that they need to support them and let them know that it's out of love. And it may be a challenge with some children, but you can't give up. You cannot give up because they are our future. And the future right now does not look very bright.
Yeah.
And so we have to, these kids, they must be able to talk to their family. They must be able to talk to their families on a regular basis. We have to know about things that are important to us. If you're religious, what is your God like? If you're from a foreign country and you want to go back home and you can't, what does that look like? How does that feel? So how do you help those children out of that? Because we have children that unfortunately are being placed in positions where they have nowhere to turn. And they don't know if they're ever going to have a way out.
That is so true.
We have to be able to give them all of that input when they're young, when their brains are fresh, when they can memorize a whole sentence, and when they can look at a mommy and say, mama, those moments, we have to start right then. We can't wait. Well, I'll do it one day. Well, I'm going to keep working for 5 years. Then I'm going to take time off for the kids. And I'm not saying we have to be with the kids, but we have to find what works for you. You can't just let it go and say, we'll fix it one day.
Yeah.
This is not a game. This is my life.